Welcome to another edition of the Yopa podcast. As you know, every week we share another story of one of our amazing community and their career to date. Of course, none of this would be possible without our partners at Digital Sparks. And if you haven't heard of them, do check out their website and their content and the amazing job they're doing for some of their clients. So let's get into it. Today's guest is someone who's reshaped what success in the estate agency can look like on his own terms. And against all the odds, David Garvey, he's a Yopa associate and former Purplebricks leader who built a team of over 30 agents, and all of this whilst navigating some serious long-term health issues. So David was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at the age of 12, but his estate agency career actually began with a 2-week work experience whilst he was still at school. But he's faced hospital stays, major surgery, discrimination, and probably a bit of self-doubt. Not only built a career, but a life rooted in family, kindness, and hard-earned confidence. And we're so proud to share his story today. So, David, welcome to the Yopa pod. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I mentioned in the intro about your lifelong health issues. So I think perhaps if we start there, because obviously that has impacted your entire life, really.
Yeah.
So you were diagnosed at quite a young age with Crohn's. So tell us a little bit about that, how the diagnosis came about and how that's impacted your education and life moving forward.
Yeah, sure. So I was 12 years old, started to feel really unwell, sort of tired, lots of sickness, upset stomach, and it started to really impact me being able to go to school. So obviously, chased down sort of like doctors and appointments and whatnot. It took nearly 18 months to get a diagnosis.
Wow.
So
how long ago was this?
This would have been
you couldn't have to give away your age.
Yeah. Well, there would have been 28.
Right. Okay. So do you think it would take as long to get the diagnosis now?
Hopefully not, no.
Right, okay.
Back then, I don't think that there was enough awareness. Barely anyone sort of knew about Crohn's or colitis or any sort of type of condition like it, as where now, as soon as I mention it to someone, it's, oh, my friend, a relative, neighbour or whatnot suffers with that, and people seem to have a bit more awareness around it.
Well done to you for going on social media and sort of just putting a focus on that and making people more aware of how ill you can actually be. It's not an upset tummy or an allergy or or intolerance. It's a very serious illness. So at school, so your secondary school education, you were in and out of hospital, were you?
Yeah, it would have been halfway to sort of the end of year 7, which was the first year in secondary school, and being off and then, admitted to hospital. But once they finally diagnosed what it was, things started to turn around quite quickly.
Right.
So they put me on a course of steroids, had to be in hospital for a period of time just to sort of, stabilise and things like that, and sort of find my feet a little bit with diet and what I can have, what I can't have. But one of the big symptoms of being on the steroids was putting on loads of weight.
Yeah.
So then that affected me being able to do, sort of PE at school and feeling confident. And
generally speaking, though, is exercise recommended, not recommended if you're suffering from Crohn's? Obviously, the steroids will make you put on the weight.
Yeah.
What is suggested in terms of keeping fit?
Yeah, all within moderation, really.
Right, okay.
It's definitely something where, you should at least be, semi-active, because the more you move around, the more likely it is that things are going to move around inside and keep working. And I think also probably just from a sort of mental health point of view, it's good to get out, get some fresh air. And all my stints in hospital, I've always made a point of counting my steps every day, up and down the hallways. Because as soon as you've had surgery, they say, we want you back on your feet as quickly as possible, and mobilising and so on and so forth. So I've always sort of carried that with me. But once you've then had a number of surgeries, it then becomes quite difficult in terms of what you can and can't do from an exercise point of view. So I'll wear like a belt strap if I'm going to be doing any weights or trying to avoid sort of sit-ups and things like that, because it will probably cause more problems than good.
So going back to your school career, so you were in and out of hospital. You got to, what, I don't know which year, is it year 11 at 10 that they do the work experience?
Year 10 from memory, yeah.
Year 10. So everybody has to do work experience, 2 weeks, and yours was in an estate agent.
Yeah, so thankfully I had a really good relationship with the careers officer at the school. I think where my parents had been in and out speaking to the headmistress, and obviously they were aware of my condition and whatnot. My original placement was actually going to be in a restaurant.
Right, okay, not ideal.
So we had a chat and was like, yeah, that's probably not the best thing to do. So they said, look, we've got an option for you to go into an estate agency. So when I first heard it, I was kind of like, right, okay, how does that work? What does it look like? And from the first day that I turned up into that office, it was very old school, you know, filing cabinets. There was no computers on desks or anything like that. Not everyone had a mobile phone, showing age a little bit now, but it was all very kind of manual, you know, window display, people walking in. There was only one member of staff, 2 had left, and the director was on holiday for a week.
Okay.
So I literally was plonked at the front desk with the phone, with a pen,
with
pad.
a suit on?
Oversized shirt at the time. It sort of looked like I'd probably borrowed my dad's work attire. And it was just a case of just getting stuck into it. And then as we got through that first week, I started to really just enjoy what I was doing and learning on the job.
Was that literally in a week you thought, yeah, I like this. Did you know what an estate agent did before you went into your work experience?
Briefly, but it was completely different to what I expected it to be. Yeah. It was a lot more, you know, kind of hands-on, speaking to clients and really, you know, helping, guiding what I worked out quite quickly. What if someone said, like, I'm looking for this, it was the case of, okay, well, have you considered this or that? And then getting an understanding of all the stock that you have as an estate agent, and then, you know, working all of that stock. So I think it definitely helped going into that environment to learn the trade, basically.
So after your 2 weeks work experience, they were so impressed with you that they offered you a job, is that right? So when you left school, you had a job to go straight into? Yeah,
pretty much. The director returned from holiday in the second week. He come and said hello to me, and I remember being on the phone and him sort of coming in and sort of tapping me on the shoulder, and he looked a little bit startled as to like, what's going on? Why is this kid
Did he not know
at the
you were
front
coming
desk? He knew that someone was going to be there as a placement, but I don't think he quite knew the extent that I'd been put at the front desk. So I got on with him really well. I asked him if I could start going out on valuations that week, as we now had an extra person, well, the owner basically in the office. So did that. I remember walking to viewings, getting the bus to appointments and just kind of cracking on. So after about a day, I got the feeling that he felt quite comfortable with me sort of doing what I was doing in his business, and just said to him...
He wouldn't, I mean, it's too important to a business for him to think if you couldn't do it or weren't sort of motivated enough to, So you decided that's what you wanted to do.
Yep.
You had a full-time job after you left school, so straight away?
So I left school, give or take, probably 4 or 5 months earlier than what I should have done. But the agreement was that I would go back and sit my GCSEs and study in my own time, basically. I wasn't able to be paid while I was working there, but I didn't have a problem with that because I just enjoyed...
So you were there unpaid?
Yeah.
Whilst you're still doing your GCSEs?
Correct, yeah.
God, the drive is unbelievable. You know, it's off the scale. And how long did you stay with that? That was an independent?
It was just completely independent. The setup, though, of that office was that they had, there was about 3 or 4 different companies. So there was a firm of solicitors upstairs. There was a mortgage broker at the back. There was a lettings business at the front of the office.
All under one brand?
No, all different offices, So it was almost like a one-stop shop where you could get insurance, you could let a property, buy a property, sell a property, get a mortgage, use a solicitor upstairs. Makes sense. All under one roof, but it was a really nice environment, and I can't thank the guys enough, really, because I walked in there as sort of 15, 16-year-old kid with no experience whatsoever, and these are all, you know, full professionals, business owners.
And they trained you well?
Yeah.
Which is good. So how long did you stay with them?
I was with them for a couple of years. It became apparent to me that, you know, I wanted to have the room to be able to grow and move up to be, you know, a senior negotiator, a lister, a branch manager and whatnot. So I decided to start looking around and seeing what was available, and then joined a national corporate agency.
So you've worked for a couple of the big corporates.
Yeah, 2 big corporates, I would say, and then a couple of independents along the way.
And what was it? So all this time, you've still got your health issues. How did your employers deal with that, and what was your health doing? You know, because you obviously work incredibly hard. Does that have an impact on your health, on the Crohn's, or are you able to manage it?
I think it started to, because once things got settled, to be brutally honest, I never had a conversation with the work experience placement about my health.
Oh, really?
And neither did I with the
Did they know about it, though?
Only if the school would have told them, but it was never really something that kind of...
Know, did they?
Probably didn't.
No. Yeah.
And again, I think back then it was, you know, you felt a little bit uncomfortable speaking about it. If anything, you'd probably do everything you could.
I think people probably still do now.
Yeah, a lot more than what we expect.
I would like to think not as bad, but it's the same, I would say, with mental health. People don't want to talk about mental health issues to their employer because they're fearful that it might impact on their
affect
career,
their position and whatnot.
their prospects. So you were dealing with it. Your employers did or didn't know?
Certainly the corporate agent that I joined after that first placement, they didn't know. Didn't have any conversation with them about it. And thankfully for 2-3 years of being there, I was completely fine. It was only when I went for a regular checkup, and every 12 months they would do, you know, a colonoscopy just to sort of see, make sure everything's...
The joy of a colonoscopy.
Oh yeah, we won't get too much into that.
If you haven't had one, guys, you don't want one. But...
No, and it turned out that things were a lot worse on the inside than what it seemed to be. So the doctors and the hospital advised that I go in for surgery, have a bowel resection, and so that's taking part of the bowel away, rejoin him, and I'd be back to work within sort of 3-4 months thereafter.
That is major surgery.
So I went in to have that done. Had obviously no idea what to expect. It was always a fear when I was diagnosed with Crohn's that if I was ever going to, you know, need to have like a stoma or something along those sort of lines, that was a huge fear of mine. But again, there was no real conversation or education around. And
there's a lot more now, and you know, social media. You see these videos come up with people sort of talking about living their life with a stoma, and the more people talk about it, and you know how they can lead an almost normal life. I'm not saying it's 100% normal, because obviously it isn't, but so the more we talk about it, I think the better. So you had 3 or 4 months off work with the surgery, and then what was it going back to work like? How did they react?
So I was due to go back to work in that time frame, but unfortunately I wasn't able because there was a leak from the resection from the surgery. So I ended up with infections and all sorts, and then being re-hospitalised and back in there for a number of months. And it turned out that I needed to then have another surgery operation to fix the complication from the first one. So I actually got moved over to a different hospital at that time that specialised in those type of things. They got me in quite quickly, did the surgery very quickly, but within literally the matter of about 10 days, 2 weeks, it had leaked again. So the whole of my scar-lined stomach was completely opened, because where it had leaked, it needed to find a way out. And it was all basically from there. So I wasn't able to even sort of stand up, because where there was such a large open wound in my stomach, I was just hospitalised, and that lasted for 12, 13 months.
You were in and out in hospital for the whole 12 months, or were you able to come home?
No, correct. Yeah, home for the hospital for the whole time.
Wow.
Wasn't able to eat, wasn't able to drink, so it was just fluids, TPM, which is the intravenous feed into the main artery to sort of try and rebuild. I lost a lot of weight. I lost half my weight actually. I went down to about 6.5 stone at the time.
God, David,
so it was wasn't a fun time at all, unfortunately.
So all this time, you're concentrating on trying to stay alive, really. your career had to go on hold. Obviously, you can't. There's nothing you could do.
No, yeah.
Did you ever go back to that same employer, or did you then, when you went back to work eventually, did you join somebody new?
So I didn't, the plan was to go back to them, and I went back there briefly, but they made it quite uncomfortable, to be brutally honest, particularly towards the latter part of that year that I was off in, you know, we're not able to, you know, guarantee the same position back for you, which is fair enough, but there was issues around sort of like the finances and payments, and it kind of just felt that I wasn't, they'd sort of moved on and probably didn't want to maybe risk me taking another absence after that. So the relationship broke down, unfortunately, and I decided to move on. But then when I did move on, I was very open and honest, because at that time, that's when I had a colostomy.
Right, okay.
So very open and honest with my employer, with my colleagues and whatnot.
And this was another corporate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there, to be fair, everything was good for a few years. Then there was a bit of change around with management and whatnot. And then there was a few incidences where I was made to feel really uncomfortable, to be brutally honest. And it just kind of, it just sort of
Do you want to talk about that at all? I mean, you don't have to.
No, I'm more than happy to be completely.
In what way did they make you feel uncomfortable?
So quite simply, with the branch that I was in, there was only one toilet for the whole branch. They'd expanded the office quite a bit, so they put lettings in there. There was sales, you had an administrator, sales progressor and whatnot.
So how many staff in the office?
12, give or take, but only one toilet. So when you've got a colostomy bag, you know, you may have to change that during the day. You may have to go to the bathroom to empty it and things like that. But there was no window in that bathroom. So as you can imagine, it was very uncomfortable. And there was a lot of comments and remarks and things that were made. And I can remember one day the new manager that had come in, he sort of opened the front door and the back door, and it was, it just kind of made me feel really ashamed.
Was it ever talked about? Or?
No, from that point, I tried to speak to the regional manager at the time about it in a roundabout way. You know, I wasn't sort of running back and going, oh, you know, he's been out of line or out of order. It was just like, I'm dealing with this. I need to sort of try and find a bit of a solution here, because, you know, I don't want to feel like I've got to keep going home every time that I need to either change my colostomy or whatnot. And there was a little bit of empathy there, I would say, but it never really got resolved. There was never really a solution that was in place, and it just sort of drove me to the point of thinking, I need to look for something else.
Right.
Yeah.
And that something else was?
So that something else was going to work for an independent. I spent 4 or 5 years there, really enjoyed it. It was a much smaller office, you know, there was only 4 of us in total, but they gave me free rein to go out and list, you know, at my peril.
Is that what you love to do?
Yeah. But something that I've really enjoyed recently is getting back into even just doing viewings. I think when you're out of that sort of, you know, role for a period of time, you sort of look back and think, oh no, I've moved on from that. But actually, there's nothing better than, you know, seeing a buyer walk into a property and their eyes light up and you go, I've brought this to the market, I've brought this to you, I've now found you your new home.
So you're with an independent, you're listing, you're really enjoying life. Health, how's the health at this stage? Yeah,
health went back to being good. My Crohn's has been very much, it's either very stable, and it will be for 3, 4, 5 years.
Right, and then
and if it flares, it normally results in sort of surgery or me being really, really unwell for a period of time. So I've had these moments within my life career where, you know, there might be 6 months out or that 12-month period. But it's always, you know, brought me to wanting to come back sort of bigger, stronger and better than before.
There's no stopping you, is there? There really isn't. And then from the independent, you then, that's when you launched?
So I went to actually have the stoma reversed.
Right, okay.
I was coming up to sort of late 20s at this point, and I sort of thought, right, well, you know, when I get into my 30s, when I start thinking about starting a family, and what I didn't want to have to happen if I could control was that, you know, I'd have a child and then 6, 12, 18 months later down the line, then go in and spend 6 to 12 months having surgery and recovering and potential complications and whatnot. So, but while I had the colostomy stoma, I went scuba diving.
Really?
Travelled to Thailand for 2.5 weeks, sort of backpacking. Like, there was nothing that I played football once a week in a five-a-side team.
So there's no keeping you down at all. Do you feel that having the stoma had an impact on your relationships?
To start with, again, being totally honest, I never used to. I didn't talk about it at all.
Right.
And then it kind of got to the point where I thought to myself, I've got to. This is part of me now. Yeah. So if someone don't like it, or they're not interested, or they don't want to understand it, and I'm not saying that, you know, that everyone should be in acceptance of it and it be absolutely fine from a relationship.
You know, it is a reality of life. You know, yeah. And
there's more people than probably what you'd ever expect that are walking around with some sort of stoma, ileostomy, colostomy. And I found that when I actually was just honest at the start, I mean, it's not something you'd say on a first date opening line.
It's not the opening line, is it?
But, you know, once you've got to know that person, you know, after a few hours, after a couple of dates or whatnot, to be able to then say, look, this is what I've gone through, this is what I've got, but look, I'm getting on with life, and so on and so forth. And actually, no one ever turned around to me and said, I don't want to talk to you no more, or not interested, or anything like that.
That's because they're decent people. I mean, but yeah, it would say a lot more about them than it does about you.
Maybe I was, you know, as well, I can see that there would have been a lot of people that either would not look to have a relationship or would be scared to sort of even mention it, you know, to a friend, let alone, you know, a potential partner. So, but thankfully, it was openly well received and wasn't an issue at all. And then once you get over that hurdle, the confidence is immediately installed into you, because you're not walking around thinking, oh my God.
I think your attitude towards your health issues are just, well, credit to you, just really outstanding. So scuba diving, playing football, living the life, but then you want to have a little bit more flexibility, so you made the decision to go self-employed.
Yeah.
With Purplebricks.
Indeed, yeah.
So I remember when you joined, because you were in the neighbouring territory to me, and you flew right from day one. You obviously, you turned that area around. I don't think you had the territory straight away, did you?
No,
somebody else did.
No,
so you joined as I can't remember.
Local property expert.
An LPA, and then took the territory to a later date and absolutely flew and built that to such a successful territory. And then obviously, as we know, Purplebricks pivoted and everybody became employed. So what made you, because obviously you wanted that flexibility, you wanted to run your own business, what made you stay? Because you stayed there for another 5 years?
So the first 5 years was being self-employed. The conversation I had, though, when I joined the business or partnered with them, because being in that sort of self-employed position, was because I was about to set up my own business from scratch, because that was a dream that I always had. But it was within that time where, do you still need an office, or can it be done, you know, remotely? So I got a phone call, spoke to the regional at the time, which was Christian, and he said to me, look, you know, you can earn this and do that. And I was very kind of blasé, as much to be like, well, everyone always says you can get this and earn that, but then the reality can be somewhat different without being sort of negative. And I thought to myself, do you know what have I got to lose? I saw that the business was growing at a really rapid rate. There was lots of people that were joining, and it was starting to take off. And I thought, what have I got to lose? I'd already set up all of my self-employed bits. So
it's such a great attitude, though, because what have you got to lose? Because you can always go back to an employed role.
Exactly.
If it didn't work out. So well done to you for sort of taking that.
Thank you.
That step. Sorry.
No,
go back to the pivoting to employed. What?
So at that point, everyone that was within the business, there was obviously a lot of people that had left when it went from being self-employed to employed, because naturally there was only a certain amount of employees that the business could have and make it work financially. And everyone there at the time I'd got to know, you know, one way or the other. So there was that understanding from a health point of view, from a personal point of view, and I suppose just all round, because they'd seen what I'd been able to do and how much I love the business and doing what I do and the team that I had, etc. So the first couple of years were absolutely fine, but we just seemed to lose, there seemed to be a loss of sight, for want of a word. And I just sort of found myself being back in that employed position, thinking, you know, where am I going? What am I doing? What do I really want? And when I really sort of drilled down into what that was, it was having my own business, a bit similar to when I first joined or went self-employed. So I thought this time I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it properly, and
So doing it properly meant leaving Purplebricks, but you were ill again. So because this is when I first found out, you know, how serious your health issues were. So that would be probably late 24.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I went in mid-November 2024 for what was meant to be, which isn't always usually the case, a straightforward procedure. So basically parts of my bowel had stuck together. So from the previous 5 surgeries that I'd had in the lifespan, getting the adhesions. So I was getting a lot of complications, restrictive diet, not feeling, you know, myself 100%. So went in for the surgery. It was meant to be keyhole. I was meant to be home within 3-4 days, back to work in 6 weeks. So, and I spent a year deciding whether or not to have that surgery, because I didn't want to be in a position similar to before where you're facing those complications afterwards. But I felt that I had to roll the dice and see if I could, you know, just sort of get a better quality of life back again. And unfortunately, it wasn't keyhole. They had to open me up fully, go back in. They didn't need to do any resections, thankfully, but it was quite bad, and they weren't able to get to every part that they would have liked to. And within 3-4 days of them being back on the ward and starting to recover and having a soft diet, everything just sort of stopped working from stomach point of view. So there was a new adhesion from the surgery. So having adhesions fixed, one of the main complications you get is more adhesions. So
the irony of it,
so I had to have an NG tube, which is a tube that goes through the nose down.
It's pleasant, lovely.
Horrendous. And where it basically just drains all the fluid from your stomach, doesn't it? And
so this is something, this is getting really, I don't know, it's unpleasant if people are listening. But so the NG tube, what I didn't realise was that if nothing is passing through, obviously the stomach is still producing liquid, so and that's building up inside. So they need to drain that out. So the tube does that. So it's a very unpleasant procedure.
It is.
It's stuck there for days. Or possibly weeks for you. Sorry, carry on.
That's right. And when it gives the bowel a chance to rest. So those adhesions can start to settle. So 6 weeks on from having the surgery done, I was then discharged. So it was about a week or so before Christmas. But on a very small liquid diet, loads of medications to help the bowel function and keep moving and whatnot. And they said to me that there's a very good chance that I'll never be able to eat again. So it would be liquid only, or possibly having, you know, something where I was being intravenously fed and or having the stuff at home.
How did you feel about that?
At the time, I was being brutally honest. I was just delighted to be able to say that I could go home. I hadn't seen my daughter for 6 weeks.
She couldn't visit you in hospital?
She came to see me once, which was about 4 or 5 weeks in, but it was at the point where I didn't want her to see me in such a state, and I don't think it would have been fair for her
I think
to.
Your mum shared a photograph on social media, and you looked so ill. You looked so ill. So I can understand. How old's your daughter?
She'll be 8 at the end of this month, so she's 7 at the moment, and would have been
So she was 6 years old, and it's quite a lot to take in. Isn't it?
Exactly that. So we managed to do it where she came in and we went. She didn't come on the ward. Went to a day room and she saw me there. But it's amazing how resilient at that age that children are, because she was not fazed by anything, and there was lots of questions and bits and pieces. And I can remember when she came in after about 20 minutes, she said, "Oh, I need to use the toilet." So I remember getting up and taking her to the toilet, and it was just that moment of just back to normality.
Yeah, it's being daddy. Yeah.
Because without a doubt, you get a bit institutionalised once you've been in hospital for a while, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I've never had such a long stay, but yeah.
The beeps, the noises, and the screams, and the curtains being drawn, like it's just, it does become quite a lot. So those moments of normality are, never take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ever take for granted. So.
So you were still employed by Purplebricks, you were
Yeah.
in hospital again, you came out of hospital and you thought, right, I want to go in a different direction.
Yeah, there'd been further, changes within the business and whatnot, and I thought, what better time than now, because it was a give or take. It was by about May that I was actually ready to start to
May
think about
25,
coming back to work. Yeah, so
it's a good long time, isn't it?
six and a half months from having the surgery, but I'd managed to get myself back to a relatively, normal eating habit. There's only certain things that I can't have now, but I'm able to eat and drink pretty freely.
Yeah.
And reduce down the medication to the absolute sort of minimum that I need. And there are still days and times where it is a struggle, and you can have a little bit of a reaction to certain things that you haven't had before. So you're constantly adapting.
So I'm assuming there's no sort of specific diet. So every Crohn's patient is different.
Very
so
different.
It's working out what works for you personally, and thinking, right, I need to avoid that.
Yeah.
I need more of that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
So for me, red meat is a no-go. I've established that as well.
No red meat at all?
No red meat at all. But I've got very close friends that have got the same condition and they can eat red meat, but then they can't eat spicy foods. But I can eat spicy foods. So you have to just listen to your body.
But it's trial and error, and if it doesn't work, presumably you suffer from that.
Yeah. But you have to give that trial and error a really good go, as hard as it is. And there's been times where I didn't want to hear that because you're so scared of the possible complications. But it's about timing as well. If you're not feeling great, it's not going to be the best idea to go and try something new or that you haven't had for some time. And do it in moderation, obviously, as well. But yeah, I thought, after having that break, looking from the outside in and thinking, right, okay, well, technically I've been behind the scenes for nigh on 5-6 years now as a estate agent, so to speak. And even when I spoke to friends or be introduced to people, like, what do you do? And it's like, I'm sort of an estate agent, but
once you get to that level of management, you're not doing estate agency.
No.
You're managing.
And don't get me wrong, I loved
business.
every moment of winning. We had a fantastic team. There was times where it was 40 plus within the team that I was looking after, and
you had most of London at that point, didn't you?
Yeah, it grew from having sort of East London and parts of Essex to basically the whole of London, and then even parts outside of. So it was great at the time because I got to learn and understand different parts of the market in London and surrounding, and also how people operate, what the demographics are like. And it was great winning through other people and seeing them do really well and pass on the ingredients that I use, but always listen to what was going on today, not just what worked 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago. So that was really, really fulfilling. But it just got to that point where I thought, I need to sort of hit the road again and
get
see.
back to the coalface.
Yeah.
So tell us who you joined. How did you launch your business?
Yeah, so I got contacted by Tom Greenacre, who I'd known for a number of years.
Through Purplebricks.
Through Purplebricks. He was also at Spice of Heart as well, where I spent many years as well. We didn't know each other directly at Spice of Heart, but we knew of each other. So there was a lot of trust, between the two of us. And when he put the proposition to me, be totally honest, I wasn't expecting him. I met him for a coffee, and it was, I've got some ideas and whatnot. And when he actually showed me what it was, it got me excited at the prospect of having that type of setup. Got plenty of friends that are with various other different brokerages, networks, companies, etc. And I'd made my mind up that I didn't want to go back into an employed role if I could avoid it in the nicest possible way. You do what you have to do, and it's not always possible to be able to say, right, well, I can take 6 months or potentially of no income to start a business and whatnot. So you have to get to that place. But for me, thankfully, with support of my family and whatnot, I was able to say, right, let's do this. And I had a few conversations elsewhere, which is the right thing to do. You know, you want to weigh up and look at all of the different options that are out there.
And I think that's one of the great things that perhaps Purplebricks started, was the fact that the self-employed as an estate agent is a possibility.
Yeah.
And there are now lots of choices for agents. So you can start up completely on your own.
Yeah.
You can be, you know, a Yopa associate like you, or, you know, the many other models out there. And I just think giving agents the choice means, well, it's changing the industry for sure.
100%.
And people's mindset. It's much easier to go out on your own, I guess. So obviously you're a neighbouring territory to me, or a neighbouring area to me, so I can see how well you're doing. You're absolutely flying, as I absolutely knew you would as soon as I heard you were joining Yopa. But what drives you? Because, you know, given all your health issues from such a young child, you could say, do you know what, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that because, but you don't do that. You built businesses, you go scuba diving, go on holidays. What drives you? What makes you go forward like that?
I think there's something within not just me, but I think when you've been through certain situations and health issues and whatnot, and one of my very, very close friends has got colitis, and I actually met him in hospital going back sort of nearly 12, 13 years ago now. And when we both got ourselves back onto our feet and whatnot.
Are you a similar age?
Yeah, exactly the same age, both born, there's only literally a few months between us. But he was a West End singer. So he's now got a permanent ileostomy, so stoma. And he didn't feel it'd be possible for him to go back to performing in the West End. So he set up a vocal coaching business. He went on to coach a lot of celebrities and holding, you know, huge events and whatnot. And we talk about it quite often. I went off and then joined Purplebricks and made a success of that. But it's almost like you feel like you've got a point to prove, probably a little bit more than anybody else, because you've been told.
Prove, so we did discuss this a couple of days ago. So obviously I have my own health issues. A point to prove to yourself or to the wider community or your family or your peers?
I think it's probably more to yourself, because I don't think other people are expecting you to do it, but you feel a little bit like that, you know, you want to prove it to them, even though they're not expecting it. Or
but I just think, for me, I want to do that, and I think I can, so let's give it a go. And if it doesn't work,
I'm probably, you know, you're probably the same in that I'm my worst enemy at times, where you do too much basically, or more, but it's that part in you where you don't want to give up.
I'm considerably older than you, so I do accept my limitations better than perhaps you do. So there are things that I think, right, I can't do that. But there are other things that people say, well, why do you want to do that? So I just want to give it a go, whatever that might be. So in recent years, obviously you've got your daughter, she's coming up for 8, and you got married a couple of years ago as well.
Nearly 2 years ago.
So personal life is going well. I know you've got huge support from your family. But what would you like to see in industry, and maybe what can women in a estate agency do to help support people who are discriminated against for whatever reason, whether it's you know, health or gender? What can we do to support you or your community, I suppose?
I think first and foremost, a platform like this is amazing to see, you know, with the likes of yourself and the other people that are involved within this. And to me, this is hopefully just the start of something that will become very mainstream. Because like you said earlier, although that you think it might not go on because we're in 2026 and it feels like everyone now has got a voice and can speak up, there'll be so many people that just don't feel comfortable enough to do that. And they'll hold themselves back, not go for even an interview, let alone take a job role or feel that they can go into a certain industry. You know, the limitations are really what you set. And don't get me wrong, there are people with conditions that do limit that, and there is no choice in the matter, so to speak. But you know, just being, I think people being heard listened to and the
I think
understanding.
there's also an element of looking at what people can do rather than what they can't do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, people, as you said, some people's health conditions don't allow them to, you know, perhaps to do what you've done, but we shouldn't be writing people off.
No,
we shouldn't be
absolutely
saying
not.
they can't do that. If
Yeah.
you know, if you think you can do something, well, let David have a go at doing
Yeah,
it then,
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than saying no, he can't do that.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same for any sort of health condition, I guess. Right, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. I think we could carry on talking
Yeah.
about things all day, but there is one last question that we have to ask you. So we ask everybody this, and it's, who would you nominate to be in the hot seat? Somebody that you think would be a great guest for the podcast.
I would have to say Tom Greenacre, who's you know, I'd say a close friend of mine now, and obviously colleague, and someone that I, you know, look up to, and we bounce ideas off of each other. And I think he's got a lot of stories to tell and share.
I'm sure he has. I don't know Tom well, but we'll get him on the list and we'll get him invited. So
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, David.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.